Are you stuck? How about unhappy? Join Alena Chapman, author, mentor, and life coach for Magical Moments with Alena as she challenges you to get out of the doldrum and start living your life to the fullest. In just 60 minutes, Alena will help you take control of your life and push you to do the things you never thought you'd do. So get ready to take back your power and celebrate life with Magical Moments featuring Alena Chapman.
It's time for magical moments, for that ease and betterment in your life. And I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And boy, guys, it is so time to start feeling that. You know, my magical nugget today is an interesting one because I was observing this week. Well, I actually ran into people who asked me. They actually asked, you know, what is this? Everybody's talking about awakening and insightfulness. And what is that? And why? And then I was starting to listen to a lot of spiritual people, and we toss that around like it's, you know, pancakes and hot dogs. We use it like a common word, and we use it as a catch-all phrase. And so no wonder people who are new into this wanting to understand more, which more and more people want to understand more. I mean, look at what's happened. I mean, seriously, look what has happened in our world. Everything that we thought was secure has been stripped away. And when that happens in our life, oh my gosh, that brings up questions. That brings up incredible whys. So they're saying, well, what is this awakening thing? Well, first of all, I'll let you know, we have all gone through a huge awakening. This was an awakening. But I want to throw in a phrase that I think will help people. In the King James Version of the Bible, yes, I am taking the Bible today. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receiveth, and he that seeketh. All you have to do is knock. All you have to do is say, why? It just takes you being curious, not thinking you have all the answers. And I'll tell you what, you go into a meditation or you walk in nature or you talk ideas with another person and you just allow your mind to be open with curiosity. And that is when you start to so-called, quote unquote, awaken. That's when all of a sudden the insights, the answers will start to come to you in so many ways. Through what you see, the opportunities, the people that you meet that will suddenly, out of nowhere, say something so profound and you know it's not usually in their character. This stuff will start happening to you. Why? Because you have knocked. And when you knock, you will receive. We don't talk about that enough. And yet it's one of the biggest ways that we can start to awaken. I have an incredible guest today. He knows this. He knows this. That's why I have him on. Garrain Jones. He dealt with homelessness for 2.5 years, living out of his car and feeling like he was drowning in misery, as well as being sent to prison for 2.5 years. See? He needed to ask. Yet going through both of these difficulties and more, he found a way to turn his life around. Garrain's story is a perfect example of how you can go through so many difficult things in life, but that doesn't mean you'll never find success. Heck, doesn't mean you won't find happiness. It doesn't mean you won't find who you truly are. It won't mean that you can't live life to the fullest, right? In a place of difficulty, Garrain developed the strength to rescue himself. Health and fitness played such a big role in his life because he grew up thinking success was in material things. Oh my, isn't that interesting? It wasn't until he got healthy that he started to feel different. Once he started to feel different, he then started to think, speak, and act differently. His actions changed based on how he was feeling. You can only reach a certain level of happiness when you're not healthy. There is no way you can be happy if your heart isn't healthy. Quote unquote from Garrain Jones. I want to get him on right now. Hey, how are you? Garrain, this is Alena Chapman.
Alena, you have by far the best voice, the best intros. I was just like listening. I was like, wow. I was like, oh yeah, she's talking about me.
Yes, I'm talking about you. Well, how are you? And I am so glad that you're part of this show. And boy, do you have a story. You have a story, my dear man. So I really want to bring up this question because let's face it, your homelessness. Now, not everybody in the world was homeless, but they have had their world turn around. And that's the same thing. They have had everything stripped from them that they thought was secure. You, being homeless, had the same thing. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, even when I was in prison, like you didn't have to go to physical prison to feel like you're in prison, like you're in a relationship for 10 years that you know you don't want to be in and you stay in it. That's a prison. You're at a job for 20 years getting paid less than your value, and you know you don't want to be there, and you stay there.
Yeah.
That's a form of prison.
Yeah.
So
it is. Oh, it's a big prison. Yeah.
Yeah. In that sense, I share all the time. I was like, man, in some form or fashion, we all pretty much are going through the same thing. It just looks different, and it looks different on the surface.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we think we have our freedom, but, you know, everything's been stripped of us and we think we have our freedom. But you know what I think? I think because I see people tiptoeing, I mean, really tiptoeing. I was just talking to someone yesterday. I went in to get a refund on something that I bought but didn't need, so I returned it, and it was dead, but yet there were cars on the road. I looked at the girl, I said, I don't think anybody wants to come into human contact. They're tiptoeing. They'll get in their cars and drive, but they're not going anywhere. They're tiptoeing into places. And I think the worst prison we have right now is that it's our mind.
Yeah.
It's our mind.
You know, it's I totally agree, and you know, I hear people say it, and I gotta have my freedom. I gotta have my freedom. I'm like, yo, I tell you, the power to possess your own mind and use it in the way that you want to use it is my version of freedom. But outside freedom does not determine real freedom to me because it's all on the surface.
That's right.
Who you are, what's in your heart? Are you using it? Are you not using it? Are you doing what you want in life? Are you not doing what you want in life? And I mean, we can get into a whole 5-hour conversation just off the word freedom and what it means.
Mind is very well. When you were in prison, well, okay, homeless, I understand. Prison is not something I've really acquainted myself totally with. Physical prison. Homelessness, I was almost at that point in my life. So I do understand the beginning feeling of that. And I understand that it's very easy to go down into that hopelessness. It's very easy to find yourself in a world that is like, just everything's gone. Life as you know it is gone. And but you talk a lot about physical health. Now, why? Well, I think, this physical health, which I agree is so important, because if your mind isn't working and your body's not working, then how can you get your creativity going and your spirit going and the good part of your consciousness working, So tell us a little bit, was it in prison or was it in homelessness that you started to wake up?
Well, it was actually both. I just wasn't aware. And you can't change what you're not aware of, even if you're having change, because you can't see the picture while you're in the frame. But I'll tell you, in losing my freedom while I was in prison serving a 12-year sentence for smuggling drugs, and losing my freedom, that's where I actually found my freedom. Because while I was in prison, I remembered that I used to say, I feel like I'm so far away from where I'm supposed to be. I feel like I'm in prison inside of my own body. I was doing everything that everybody wanted me to do. And then I got busted I got busted, and then all of a sudden I'm in prison, and they stripped away my money, stripped away my girlfriend, stripped away my daughter, stripped away all of these outside things. So guess what? The only thing I was left with, me. I was left with me, and we were watching this movie called Shawshank Redemption, and Tim Robbins, in the movie, he said, they can take everything they want away from me, but they can't take away my mind. And in that moment, right there, I became a free man because I realized that I put myself in there by focusing on being in prison every single day. What could I do in prison? What could I do in here that I wouldn't normally do out there? So I remembered that I loved art when I was a little kid, and it brought me so much joy. I remembered I loved motivating people. I remembered that I loved singing and drawing and running. I started doing everything that brought me joy, not other people, but me joy. So I filled up my own cup. When I embodied the characteristics of what it means to be free inside of my own body and doing everything that I love and bringing so much joy regardless of the circumstance, I, quote unquote, out of nowhere, they called me in the office and they said, we retested the drugs, which I have no idea why, because they'd already tested them 3 times. It was 6.2 kilos of heroin that I was smuggling.
Yeah.
They retested the drugs, and they said 90% was fake.
Come on.
For the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home.
So that was was it truly fake, or were they just giving you a break?
All I know is when I felt the most free, I have felt more free in prison than I did when I was outside.
That's big.
When I felt the most free and I embodied the frequencies and energy of freedom, just really found joy inside of my own self.
All right, I want to take you back just for a minute because I want people to understand this mind imprisonment. You know, of course, when you were in prison, all of a sudden you saw that it was your mind that was keeping you in prison in your life. But what was it like before you had that realization?
The thing about it is I wasn't even aware of the thoughts until I started living a positive life. I never lived a positive life since I was a little kid. So it's kind of like the ABCs. It's like, what is your thought before you learn the ABCs? You don't really know that. It's just something that when you're going gaga goo goo, somebody plants a seed called language inside of you, and then you start learning that. Once that machine starts going, ABCs turns into words, turns into language, turns into essays, books, and libraries. Well, my life as a little kid came from poverty, came from insecurity, came from jealousy, came from unworthiness. And so that was swirling around in my family dynamics. So just imagine that as a form of ABCs that just kept playing out. So my whole life was a myriad of the collection of thoughts that I had where I was domesticated in that low resonating environment in my home. So I don't really know what those were because I'd always been like that.
Right.
What was new for me was being in prison and then start reading these self-help books called The Power of Positive Thinking, The Power of Now,
The
Power by Rhonda Burns. So I started putting different things and words and affirmations inside of my mind, and it's almost like you fill up a cup and then it reaches a tipping point, then it starts to spill over into the next container. Well, my cup was my own mind, body, and soul with all of these positive affirmations and positive words, and that just spilled over into the next container called the physical evidence of my life.
Very cool. Very cool. So it is just learned. It's so learned. We put ourselves in prison because that's what we really came from. That knowledge, those little words, those behaviors, that way of being that we learned. They always say we are sponges from the time we're 1 or even before to the 6 or 7 years old.
Even in the womb.
Yeah, I believe that too. I think in the womb. Because if you are in the womb and I have 3 boys. I know when the things that I did impacted them totally. I mean, to the point where I know what they like and dislike because they liked it when they were in the womb. And those are things that I would do. Yeah, I do believe that. So what you say, what you practice, how you feel, the anxiety you feel, that affects the baby totally. Now, I want to go fast forward through all it's well, I do want to point something up. It's so funny when you started to wake up, that awakening feeling, your mind is now the place where you can get freedom. And you started to get out into the world, started to do things that were healthy, like running. And look at what the powerful impact that was. But it is interesting to me because that's the exact same thing that I did. Now, mine wasn't extreme like yours, but I started to do the exact same thing. I started to say, wait a minute, I have to learn that this is just not what I'm going to accept. I'm going to create my reality over here. I don't have to live this reality anymore. And I just started creating a new reality right then and there with new goals, new visions, new ways to have a safe, wonderful family, new happiness and security. I did the exact same thing as you.
That's so powerful.
Isn't that cool? And I think that's, and this is the thing. And I started to do what I call it. I'd wake up in the morning and say, I want to just, what is fun? And whatever it was, I would do it. And you know what I was doing? I was tapping into the things that I would do when I was little, just like you did. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. See, it's a key. It's a key for people to grab onto.
And I wanted to add to that. I love that you said when I was little because, I have this saying, adults are deteriorated children, and people often forget about the child that's inside of them. And so that's what causes the decaying and the deteriorating. So one day I wrote a letter from my big self to my little self, because I like that. Who I was when I was a little kid. And I was sitting down and I was just like, you know what? There's a lot about my past that I was ashamed of, that I was afraid of, that I'd never done as a child. So one day I sat down and, because I'm a big journaler, and I wrote a letter from my big self, from Big Garrain to Little Garrain. And then when I was done, I switched to my non-dominant hand, operates a different part of your brain. And you non-dominant hands, it literally looks like a little kid. So I switched to my non-dominant hand and wrote a letter from Little Garrain to Big Garrain.
Okay, you switched perspectives.
When I did that, I was not prepared for all of the emotions, all of the things that I blocked away to just come up. I mean, certain resentments that I had towards my mom and dad and everything. So I fixed all of that with all the tears, and I cursed out the big version of me saying that you left me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do everything that makes me happy, that brings me joy. And if it doesn't make you happy, then it wasn't written for you to do that. When I started doing that, there was this childlike essence, energy, joy that just swirled in my, I call it just like my aura, my ecosystem, my spiritual ecosystem, that just started attracting money, people, opportunities. And they're like, there's just something about you. And what they didn't realize is I was operating from little Garrain, who just wants to play and have fun and be a superhero and have abs like an action figure, change and save lives all over the world. And so what people see now when I'm on these stages of 50,000 people or 20,000 people or one-on-ones or my books and things, they think it's the adult. It's actually little Garrain, who is really answering his calling of being a superhero, being stronger than the average man, abs like an action figure, and saving and changing lives all over the world.
It's very cool. You went through the healing of the child. You know what I mean? That's what you did. You healed the child first. You let the child have a voice. That's kind of like the shamans. There's a shamanic a journey that you go back and you talk to the essence of the age that comes up for you, which is usually that child. And when you do that, you find that you heal that child. That's exactly the process you did. And isn't it cool how we get that just innate to do that? But then, you live by the child. I love it. And that's, why wouldn't you? That was your essence. That's you. Why not live? Why do we have to be this stern adult? Really, if you think about it, that stern adult is the one that has been indoctrinated into society with all the beliefs, with all the dogmas, with all the pressures, with all the you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah, you live by it, and I love that you said that. Live by the child, just understanding that there's just more responsibilities as you get older. But if you live by the child, if you just watch children, they have endless amount of energy, endless amount of faith. They create, they discover, they're curious, and when you see that, if you really follow some of the most influential people in the world that like really have a good head on their shoulder, because you can be influential and overcompensate in areas and be attracting a bunch of weird negative stuff in your life. I'm talking about the people that are really clean in their energy.
Yeah.
You always see that the things that they do carries the essence, a childlike essence, that energy surrounding it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I've been so blessed. I am very blessed. And I have met people from all walks of life almost. And the ones that fascinate me the most, they really fascinate me, other than the real psycho killers. I find that very interesting too, why they do that. But the people who make it, like really make it, they're successful. They got the family, they got the money, and then they lose it. And then they make it again and they lose it. And I was talking to one when he was down on his luck, and I said, so do you ever fear that you're not going to be able to make it again? He goes, no, I'll make it. And in that no, I'll make it was like this child. It was this child that this is a game. And yes, I win and I lose, but I win big. And I enjoy life. And I thought to myself, he's truly living the life he's supposed to live. He's truly enjoying every step of the way. And you know what? He was so incredibly fun to be around. Because he lived life.
Well, I was going to say, I think that is so beautiful, and I love the fact that you spoke about getting it and then losing it, because that's actually exactly what happened with me. People are looking at my success now, but what they didn't see is like when I was in music and making music and writing songs for platinum-selling artists and on MTV and on radio stations and things like that, when I was signed to DTP Def Jam, with Ludacris.
Yeah.
You see that as a certain success, and then all of a sudden I lost it. And then I was in modeling, and I was modeling all over the world, and I was one of the top black male models in America in 2001. You could go into any mall, and I was in like 7 different campaigns.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Videos. So all of this was happening. How did I get it, lose it, get it, lose it? Now get it, and then expand it, and then sustain it, and then keep on and multiply times 10. It's because I wasn't aware that the attitude and how I'm seeing life and my ego could take away everything that I worked hard for. So when I got out of prison,
self-sabotage.
That's when I had gotten the record deal and all these things, and I'm high on life, and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, you're so great, and then I start saying, "I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great," because I wasn't doing anything to sustain that mentality. So just like weeds in a garden, if you don't tend the garden, your weeds, no matter how
strangle
pretty the
you,
garden is, the weeds are going to overtake the garden.
Right.
So the weeds of the mind and the weeds of the past will overtake anything that you worked hard for if you don't constantly practice evolving and growing and
got to weed that garden, got to fertilize it, feed it good things, right?
So when I got into health, I was like, oh, I was surrounded by goal-driven people. They were reading books all the time. And then I understood. I was like, that's why I kept losing it. It's because I didn't keep striving for growth at the level that I was trying to call in the success. And because I was operating in a low vibration, life and the results was only matching me at the way that I was thinking at the time. So if I wanted to think bigger, greater, further, faster, then I must have the personal development to match the capacity that I'm trying to call in, or else I'm going to lose it.
Mind, body, spirit. How can people find out more about you?
Well, you can go to my website, GarrainJones.com, GARRAIN, Jones.com. My Instagram is at Garrain.Jones.
I thought you might have a gift for everyone. Did you say you did? Yeah.
On my website I have my lead. There's a morning routine that I do, which is absolutely crazy. So if you go on my website, GarrainJones.com, there will be a gift waiting there for you. And then my book is on Amazon right now. It's called Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life. And it's really a lot of practical ways so that you can take your life from where it is now to the next level. And I use a lot of personal stories and all the lessons that I've learned and how you can apply it to your life in the book.
Oh, we're going to have you on again. This was a great interview. And folks, I'll tell you what, check out Soul Manifesto too, because I'll tell you, we have that wonderful 7-day reset. What is it? Well, it's how to meditate. Different ways. You will get me for 5 days, or I think 7 days, where I will teach you different ways to meditate in your life, how to gain that control back in your life, how to start to get your mind, body, and spirit united in intention to live a life of full intention versus just going around like a ping pong ball. And also join the Soul Manifesto community. It is a community of love, support, and growth. And I thank you so much for coming on, Garrain Jones. It was a pleasure to have you, and everyone out there. Remember, spirit is love. And all this stuff that when we learn how much we have control of ourselves and we start to knock at that door and ask why, that's when spirit comes in. And that's what living is all about. Namaste, beautiful people. Namaste.
This has been Magical Moments with Alena, featuring Alena Chapman. If you missed an episode, download it now on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, CastBox, Deezer, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Learn more online at soulmanifesto.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.